So everybody, let's get started. I would like to welcome you all here to the first Spot On Club webinar together with Qualifio. We will today talk about the future of sponsorships, and we'll get a presentation on how European clubs and brands have shifted to digital activation and fan engagement. We are quite excited about this because we have tried to get a physical Qualifio presentation managed in Copenhagen, but we didn't succeed because the Corona situation. So now we are really happy that we can do this today. Qualifio is also one of our Spot On Tech partners. So this is a really good example of how we can actually show and promote and present a partner to our community. So we're very pleased that so many of you have allocated the time for this webinar. I don't know how many of you have any knowledge of Belgium, and we talked about it earlier today, Jill and I. I think we know Kevin De Bruyne and we know Lukaku from the national team, but Jill, maybe you can get us on to know more about Belgium and your knowledge and expertise in the field of sponsorships. So please welcome here to this webinar.
Perfect. Thank you for having me, Lars. So indeed, as Lars introduced, we're Qualifio. We're from Belgium. It's also for us the first webinar we're giving in Denmark. So we have done webinars before, but it's the first one in Denmark, so it's pretty exciting. So I'll hope to give you more information in the coming 45 minutes around some examples of what other both football clubs or other sports clubs have done in the sponsorship environment, but also the brands on their side, how they have worked with this situation to still activate on their digital channels, and how fan engagement online has become very important for that. So yeah, it's a bit annoying that we have to do this first part always, but that's because we're still not really known in Denmark. But as you see here, we're Belgian. I'm Gilles. It's a French name, but I'm actually from the Dutch-speaking part. So that's another thing you know now about Belgium. We speak multiple languages. We even have a German-speaking community here, but I've never seen a real German-speaking Belgian in my life, actually. So that's quite funny. In our Danish efforts, or in our efforts to spread the word to Denmark, we also work with Evelyn. She won't be speaking today, but she might also get in touch with you afterwards to get a bit of feedback about how it went, what you thought about it, what was relevant. And yeah, feel free also afterwards to ask questions back if you have any questions about the example that we showed today, or that could be maybe relevant to your sector. So that was us. What is Qualifio? So it's a Belgian startup, let's say scale-up, that was founded around 7 years ago. It's a technology platform, and we work both with advertisers, so brands, with media, so for example, broadcasters, newspapers, but also with sports clubs and advertising agencies. The platform allows you to very easily create interactive formats on online channels. It can range from very simple polls and quizzes to more animated games. And there is always, let's say, an angle or possibility to collect data with those. So you see also with the brands we're working with, it goes very wide from FMCG brands to banks to car manufacturers to media. The agenda for today. So I would like to start with a case where we go a bit deeper on one specific case of how the sports team handled basically the lack of having fans in their stadium, but even before COVID came along. So let's say a specific experiment that we're gonna do. Then I want to build further on that and zoom a bit more into, okay, if we know this information of how they have handled this, how can we use this to build a more digital sponsorship offering? And then, of course, we wouldn't be giving this webinar if we would also not tell you a bit more about where Qualifio comes in. And of course, on point 4, there's a time for Q&A afterwards. But in the meantime, don't hesitate to use the chat. So Lars will keep an eye on questions if you put them in the chat. And as I said before, Lars, feel free to interrupt me. I'm happy to have a more interactive session if that works. So that's always a bit the curious part with these Zoom sessions. I would have preferred to have a real life session where we could have a coffee afterwards or a beer and do the questions like that. But here the chat will have to do. So as I said, we're going to start with an experiment, and as the scientists and the virologists are now the superheroes of today, we're going to try and use a bit of the scientific method, and we're going to start using an experiment. And in experiments, we start with hypotheses, and then we're going to experiment with things like this. With COVID, it's a bit unethical to start spreading it around and then see what happens. So what scientists often do is, okay, how can we compare this with something else that happened before? On the picture, you see the people sitting in an American stadium with their face masks on in 1918 with the Spanish flu. But unfortunately, the sponsorship world was maybe a bit smaller then. So it was a difficult example. So actually, we found another one of a customer that started with Qualifio around a year ago when I think COVID was still just something for bats in China. And we're gonna focus on a case of a Russian hockey team, an ice hockey team called Avangard Omsk. So they are actually from the Siberia, from the Omsk Oblast, but they had a very big challenge. So apparently their stadium in Omsk was not suitable, was not safe enough anymore to host their matches. And last minute, they had to change their venues for the whole season to a venue in the Moscow Oblast, which put their a distance of 2,600 or more than 2,600 kilometers between them and the fans at home. So it's a nice, or not so nice for them, of course, but it's an interesting case to look at, even before COVID, how they handled with this distance with their fans. And basically they thought, or they started with us with the mindset of, okay, how can we engage our fans while they are thousands of kilometers away? And how can we start offering these digital extras to sponsors? So today, when we started with them, they told us, okay, today none of our sponsors will buy a purely digital asset program or sponsorship. But we need to start educating them. We need to start showing them the numbers of what it could mean for them to build an offering that's suitable for the future. And of course, with COVID coming around the corner a couple of months afterwards, they were already a bit prepared for having a very digitally focused offering. So one of the first things, of course, they used to engage around was the new stadium. So they use a lot of nice images of the new stadium. And in the preseason, they engaged with the fans through different formats. So in this case, what we're seeing is a kind of swiper where people could evaluate from the new players that were signed, how they were performing in preseason and if they were a good hire or not. So it was a way for them to still give a kind of a voice to the fans, to make them feel connected online. Another one that we're seeing a lot is this kind of recurring season formats, of course, like predictions of the score. So I translated them, or I used the Google Translate extension in Chrome for the translation. So you'll see that the banner is, of course, still in Russian, but yeah, of course, you can read the text. So the goal was that they could leave their predictions. predict who would win the first score. And so what we can't read in Russian here is that the goal here is to score points for their avant-carte, so their loyalty program that they had for their webshop. So at this point, they still didn't have anybody sponsoring these kind of formats, but they already started doing them before they had sponsor for them, so they could generate traffic around them. They could report on those traffics, measure the traffic. So once after a couple of months, they had proof on paper of this is the exposure we can offer with this, this is the engagement that we can offer with this, that the sponsor would be interested, of course, to also buy visibility, but also the possibility to add their own call to actions there. And then here we see an example of a couple of months later with another classic one, Player of the Month, where in this case it was sponsored by G-Drive, one of their main sponsors. So as I mentioned, that they're trying to give more and more this voice to the fans, and a big goal of them is to create a habit for the fans. So the goal is that a fan knows that every week or every game in the same place, in the mobile app, for example, or on the social media, the same game will be announced. So they come back on a regular basis and steadily, game by game, grow actually the number of people participating to these interactive formats. And basically, as I said before, game by game, they're also measuring how many people are engaging with this, how much time are they spending on these formats, so how long is the exposure that we are getting for the sponsor. And the big advantage for them also to work with these recurring formats is that when using Qualifio, they can very easily copy this, because that's often, and especially when we look to smaller clubs with smaller, let's say, smaller teams working in the marketing department or in the activation department, the time and resources are often a big problem, and that's why putting a billboard or a logo on a shirt is not the, let's say, not the most time intensive way to sell a sponsorship. Here it already takes a bit more if every week you need to create something new on a digital scale. So the fact that they're doing these same formats every week and just change the images or the names makes it very easy for them to scale this and to have multiple formats, like I mentioned, a fan of the month, a player of the month, a goal of the week, favorite lineup, or whatever. So here we see, for example, another sponsored competition where they gave the chance to the fans to help Bob. They're gonna, I think it's a Canadian trainer they have there now, and choose their favorite lineup on the ice rink. And of course, this they could share on social media. So even more, the exposure of the logo of the sponsors was available in these social media shares. Another one that we saw them doing was making use of the historical content they had. It's not a secret, for example, that also nowadays programs on Netflix like The Last Dance about Michael Jordan or about the Formula One season are becoming more and more popular. And also every club basically has an enormous history they can use to engage around. So here you see that they made a kind of landing page of the whole history of Omsk, or of the hockey club in Omsk, that lasted 70 years with all the different articles and the highlights of their history, and also quizzes again to engage with them and have a measurable way of engaging with them that is not purely based on impressions, but also on really acting. So what their goal was not only to have the impressions, but also to create a qualitative fan, a loyal fan, that when they would put a message in front of a sponsor message in front of a fan, that they would also act on it. And that's a real shift that they needed to make from the, let's say, the mindset of offering pure impressions to really that engagement. And then here we see more and more that they were then able to offer these formats to their sponsors, and that are not always linked to also the games, but then can be purely around giving merchandising away or putting these in specific times of the year that are more interesting to the sponsor and maybe less linked to the match fixtures. So basically the conclusion there was first we need the exposure and the engagement. So first we need to know, okay, how many fans can we reach and how much can we engage them? How much time can we spend with them? How can we make them act on something? And only then it of course becomes valuable to say, okay, let's put a sponsor message there instead now, or let's propose them to subscribe to a newsletter of the sponsor, to maybe ask for a test drive if it's a car manufacturer, or print a coupon to go in store. But first things first, because we see a lot now in all these webinars actually, that there's a lot of talk of that the data is the new gold. But if you're just analyzing all the data about 100 fans, your gold is not that valuable actually. So before you start over analyzing everything, I think the first things first, you need to look at how can we work at the exposure and the engagement, and only then you can start analyzing. So you need to actually change the mindset more and more from a pure sports brand that is only focused on winning games, to also really being a media company and an entertainment company. And that's, for example, what we see also if you go to the website of the NBA in America and you scroll all the way down, you will also see that this website is now managed by Warner Media, a media company. So it's a realization that they made maybe a bit earlier across the ocean, but something that is slowly changing also more and more in Europe, where basically the clubs realize what potential they have in follower base, and even they have the content already, they have the matches every week, or they have the players that can do something. But on top of that, they also have a very positive emotion, where sometimes in the news, especially nowadays, it's not really fun to watch the news with all this bad news. Instead of that, they have really a fan base that can be positively engaged with a positive message, which is quite valuable, of course, when you also want to sell a product to them. And then the next step, as I said, so it's always important when when a sponsor says, okay, we want to do something together with a club. So on the one hand, of course, you look at the season calendar. What are the important games? When can we engage with them? Is it every month? Is it around the matches that are being played? But it's actually also very important to look to the perspective of the sponsor and start more and more taking really the marketing teams or even the sales teams on the sponsor side, on the brand side, around the table, and figuring out, okay, what are the important moments for you guys in the year to make your sales? When is basically which months are the months that you are making your sales, and where we can contribute to even increasing this. And there to help, we also have a calendar, by the way, that you can download on our blog. So also the presentation is something we will share afterwards. So I might be going a bit fast through the examples, because I want to also make sure that we respect everybody's time and stay within the 45 minutes. But of course, you'll have all the time to check those afterwards too. So I was talking about the relevant timing of a campaign, and this is actually one that you will be able to see if you go to the AS Monaco website right now. And why is timing relevant now to promote their sponsor Hankook? Of course, is we're moving from summer to fall to winter season. So it's a moment when people really need to change their tires from summer tires to winter tires. I'm also personally one that keeps forgetting it. I actually haven't changed my tires yet, so I need to make a note for myself that I make an appointment after this webinar. But basically, this is a kind of runner game that they launched together with a sponsor, where the people online could go in the app or on the website and be a player that needed to catch the balls and jump over the wheels to be able to have a high score, and every week have win prizes. also on MONACO side. So they wanted to promote their web shop and the products on their web shop. So every week they were giving away a lot of prizes, not only linked to Hankook, but also to their other sponsors, or to, for example, the shirts, the scarves, the trainings that they sell, and yeah, share this. Another recent one was also, for example, with Halloween, where again, everything was focused around getting a positive experience and promoting what they have on the webshop. So they had 100% winning game. And the goal was actually that, of course, not everybody wins a shirt, but a lot of the people that come to the end and that play get a coupon code of one of their sponsors and drive, that way they drive really the traffic from their own channels also to the web shops of their sponsors, where they can make a real purchase with the coupon codes that are distributed to the roulette, let's say. So that's really a way where they can really show to the sponsor what the sales uplift is that they can manage for their sponsor. And then another last seasonal example, let's say, that we had is here from the French club Paris Saint-Germain, where they have you'll know it better than me, as it's quite popular in Denmark, but the Yule calendar, where every day they come with new challenges, with new games to keep people engaged on a daily basis. And one day again, it will be a prize that people can win from the web shop, and it's purely focused on driving web shop sales. Other days, it's really focused on driving traffic to their sponsor's website and driving sales on their sponsor's website. An important part for them is that they also have a focus on collecting new profiles. So they have on their website, they have a Paris Saint-Germain account. If you want to participate, instead of filling in these forms, you need to either you need to be logged in, and then you don't need to identify yourself anymore. Either you need to log in or create a new account. So for them, this is also a way to not only have the exposure to the fans, but to also identify them and get to know them. So this is a way for them to be able to say, okay, Gilles went to our advent calendar campaign. He participated, so we know now who he is. He maybe checked a newsletter checkbox, so we can communicate with him afterwards. But also they use these kind of formats to figure out, for example, who my favorite player is. If I maybe like the home shirt better than the away shirt, so they can also personalize the targeting that they do afterwards and actually put me into different segments. So of course, this is already a bit more advanced. Here we're really more talking indeed about the data is gold speech. It's not always necessary, but of course, once you have the scale, this can become very interesting, not only to drive sales for the sponsors, but also later onwards on fan shops, on ticket sales, etc. And here another example, for example, from goal.com with Manchester and Melita. So the coffee brand was just a very simple quiz. So here it really was purely for Melita, the coffee brand, to get a bit more exposure and distribute their coupons around the games. Actually, not even around the game. So this is purely, again, the kind of historical content that they're reusing to engage people about around. And then, so we really focused in the previous examples on, let's say, the recurring formats. And I know, of course, it can get, let's say, a bit boring. It's not the most, it are not the most sexy formats. So then when you are talking more about virality and really getting large campaigns where you can really mean something for your sponsors, what we've seen that the most successful campaigns, or interactive campaigns at least, are the ones that really offer a kind of money can buy experience. Why? If I'm a big Anderlecht fan, for example, here in Belgium, that's maybe another thing I can learn you or teach you about Belgium, is that RSC Anderlecht is the best team in Belgium, even though they're maybe, I think, 10th in the series right now. Must be something like that, but we'll get back on top. But basically, if I'm a real fan, I already have the shirt, I already have the merch. So the next step is really offering me something that I can buy in the stores. So on the left side, you see a campaign, and this was actually completely managed by the brand side. So this was really Nesquik managing this campaign. They have a partnership with Barcelona, but they activated this on their own channels, where again, you have this kind of unique code field. So people needed to have bought a Nesquik box with a unique code to be able to play. And people could actually win a training for their child in the Barcelona Academy. So their child could go to Barcelona and do a training really in the Barcelona Training Academy. So that's really an experience where you can't go just to a store and buy a training for your child there. So it was that's why this was actually a campaign that went quite viral. The same one on the right, when the teams were being matched. I forgot the word in English. In the different pools. Anyway, in the different groups, there was a "We'll Bring the Stadium to You" campaign by UEFA for the Europa League. Where as a prize, they offered an exclusive golf with Ashley Cole. So again, something that you really can't buy in store, that made it incredibly popular and gave even more exposure. So that's another tip we want to share with that on the one hand, if you have a limited amount of resources, you can do these kind of large scale campaigns every day. So on a weekly or a monthly basis, you use basically the recurring formats. But then on the moments when they are, again, think again about the calendar of the sponsor and not just the match fixtures. You can think about, okay, how can we now go most viral for our brand with different incentives that the club can offer that the brand might not be able to offer themselves. So here you see actually the full flow also of this campaign. So people saw first the welcome screen with the prizes. They were able to choose which team they thought that was going to win the Europa League. Then in the case that they weren't logged in yet, they saw the screen set to log in or to register a new account. And then automatically they got a message saying that their participation was confirmed. They were also able to subscribe to the newsletter, and they got a confirmation mail with another message thanking them. And here again, another example. I'm maybe not going to go too deep into this one, but again, you see that it was a kind of find or pick in which goal the ball should go. And the prize again was, let's say, the possibility of making your child a field mascot. So again, something you really can't buy in a store. That was done for the Champions League by Lay's, by PepsiCo. So again, this was completely managed by the brand side, also in collaboration with MasterCard for the activation. So as I said, the first step is going after the reach and the engagement. So making sure that you have the audience, and then also that your audience does something. So if you know that your fans will answer 10-question quiz without a sponsor, you know that they will also answer it with a sponsor. And then it's actually quite interesting. What you can do is just actually look throughout the year in the different formats that you have been doing, whether it's a man of a match, a team selector, a goal of the month. Of course, you need to think about maybe more the sponsor side, where you can see, okay, how many campaigns are there throughout the year? For a man of the match, it will be the number of games. For a goal of the month, it will be per month. You can estimate the amount of participations that every campaign has, more or less. And then, of course, you can look at how much time does somebody spend on each campaign. Because, for example, if you're just voting for a man of the match and clicking on, for example, just the picture of the player you like the most, you're spending less time than when you're picking your right team or when you're answering 10 questions. And that's something we see on our end that is still a difficult one, where we also need to educate our customers a bit, where especially in social media teams, the engagement is still very much focused on a like, a comment, or a share on a social media channel. And they don't really take into account that much, okay, what effort does this engagement take? If I ask you tomorrow to upload a picture of you or a video of you dribbling a ball above your head for 15 times, you're gonna have less people uploading that video, but you're gonna have much more engagement and much more people thinking about, okay, I need to do this challenge. And if this challenge is called, I don't know, the Lay's dribble challenge, they are spending much more engagement around this. So that's also an important factor to think about when you're taking engagement in the scale. And then, of course, it's important. Let's take the example, for example, of a man of the match. So we'll see that, for example, we could say that before the season, we will already announce as the club that there will be a man of the match every match. You can, of course, decide, okay, on which channels are we going to activate this. Of course, there will be a pre-match announcement every match where you could do it on a mobile app, but also inside the stadium or on social media, everything like that. The campaign itself, and there you can also have the different steps within the campaign, and then, of course, a winner announcement. And then for each of these steps, both the campaign, the pre and the post activation, you can, of course, share, okay, these will be the channels on which we're going to activate this for you, on which you will be able to get exposure from our fans. And then there are, of course, different KPIs that could be important. And it's very important that you define before the collaboration already what the important KPIs actually are. And that's why I said earlier also, maybe take the marketing team or the sales team of your sponsor around the table to figure out, okay, what is important for them. Because yeah, some people might just be happy with the number of impressions or a number of likes. But when you are reaching the end of the season and you're renewing, especially in these troublesome days, and you can show black on white to the marketing team that, look, throughout the season, we gathered 50,000 leads for you, or we've gotten a sales uplift of 5% for you in this and this campaign, or around Christmas or around Halloween. You of course have really the numbers in your renewal to back your approach and make them renew for a more digitally focused approach in the next years. I've been focusing mainly on the clubs part. I know later on in the presentation I'll also show maybe some more the angles of, okay, when you're an activation manager on the brand side, how this could look from that perspective. So we were talking about the different possible, let's say, KPIs from a brand side. So I chose to take an example from the Swedish Football Federation. So they actually started with us just when Corona, when the first lockdown here in Belgium happened. Of course, they were lucky enough not to have a lockdown in Sweden, but still the Euros were also canceled for them. So I actually thought, okay, they're not going to start for us with us, but actually for them this was a big reason to start with the engagement with these kind of interactive formats because they had matches to engage around. And a big focus for them was also their esports. Of course, I think the lockdown was the last push that esports needed to become more mainstream. I guess almost everybody knows somebody who's now in lockdown playing I don't know, Call of Duty Warzone every night, or FIFA or whatever, but also watching these people play it. And they had, of course, their own esports league, which was sponsored by Ownit, a telco, of course, because Ownit as a telco provider wants to be the top of mind internet provider for gamers. So they basically want to be top of mind in being in having the best internet connection, and wanted to gather newsletter permissions, so basically leads, so they could retarget the gamers with, of course, and not their general telco offers, but more focused around gaming, around headset, around all the other things that they sold next to their internet subscriptions. And then going really a step further than just the newsletter permissions or the leads, here we have a very nice example from the EuroLeague. So that's the European Basketball League. It's a kind of the Champions League for basketball. So they're active. They had this campaign in Spanish, in German, in Italian, in different languages. Unfortunately, not in English, but or in Danish. But I'll help with the translation. So basically, it was a very simple quiz. In the question on the left, you can see, okay, for which EuroLeague team did Xavi Pascual train? Which did he train? So people could answer a couple of questions. Again, of course, there's a nice prize. There's a nice incentive to participate to these things. And then, so this was a campaign, as you can see, there was together with Just Eat Takeaway. They wanted to find out with this campaign, for the leads that they were generating, they wanted to qualify them. So not only did they want to have leads, they wanted to know, okay, which leads are the most important ones, and on which ones can we focus, or could we segment the content on? I'm drinking a bit of water because my voice is losing it a bit. But again, this was maybe going back for a second. So basically what they are asking here is how many times per week or per month do you order takeaway food? Which app do you use? So you see here, is it on Foodora, Livrando, Deliveroo? And then what's the main reason for you to order food online? Is it because you have a nice promo, because it's easy? And then, of course, the last one, what is the probability to that you will, during the games, when you watch the games, basically, order food online, because that's what you see more and more with the games at home, that they are focusing on an approach where they say, okay, maybe you can't go out to a bar. Here in Belgium, the restaurants have been closed for a month right now. I think the last time I went to a restaurant was in October in Copenhagen, when I was still allowed to travel there. It was actually the day that they were being closed in Belgium. So that was quite nice. But they're more and more focusing on the at-home experience with friends. So when you're still allowed to meet with friends, that you could order your food and your beers at home and have this experience. So this is a way for them to use the activation around the league, so to reach the fans, to get the exposure around the fans, but also afterwards in the retargeting that they are going to do to their fans, to make sure that they do it on the right way, that they know if they should send promos, if they should do it around the matches or not, and those kind of things. And then the last thing, something we mentioned already before a bit, is really then driving concrete sales uplift. So really working with coupons. So in this case, again, Lay's part of the Pepsi company. In this case, this was when, so it's for the people that understand Dutch, this was still to win tickets to the UEFA Champions League finals. Of course, that turned out maybe a bit badly as a prize. But the goal was that people could only participate if they bought 3 Lay's, Pepsi, or 7-Up products, uploaded their receipt, and then answered a couple of questions. So again, this is more a way to directly try and lift the sales based on the nice price that they can link to the activation. Now, still PepsiCo, not Lay's anymore, but Pepsi. This is actually already the moment where they realized that there were not going to be any Euros. So what did they do? They did a kind of drive-in, like a movie drive-in for the Champions League final. So people, I think there were limited spaces where you could drive with your car. I think there must have been 350 or something like that on a large parking lot with a big screen. So people could apply to go and watch there. And in the follow-up, so in the thank you mail, people also got a personalized message with a cashback, so they could go to the store and buy their Pepsi cans with a cashback, so they could take them to the game basically. So yeah, basically, I'm not going to focus maybe too much on those examples, but because otherwise I'm going to repeat myself maybe a bit too much. But the goal is always of customers or clubs working with us that they try reusing these kind of interactive formats, whether it's a goal of the month, just a simple contest giving a prize away, a memory game, a hashtag content, a contest where people upload their pictures. It's always a way to use this kind of engagement to then make the fans act on something. So maybe time for some conclusions on all the stuff before, because I know I went maybe a bit fast or I jumped from left to right. But on some conclusions, so we started with the case on Avantgarde Omsk. We started in Russia with a focus on, and before we even think about data and data as a new gold, we think about, okay, how do we get this volume, this exposure? How do we get this engagement? And how can we basically create this habit with these recurring formats, or more the virality with the money can buy formats, or let's say incentives or prizes? The second part was, okay, how do we make sure that the goals of the sponsor and the brand are aligned with the ones of the club? So how do we make sure that it's not only linked maybe to the game, but that it's really linked also to the period of the year that is really important? Like as we said before, it could be like with Hankook with the winter tires, or it could be around Christmas when a web shop might have their, or Black Friday when a web shop might have their greatest period in the year. And how can we make sure that it is linked really to the goals of those marketing teams, of those sales teams, where there would be leads, newsletter permissions, really direct sales with coupons, depending of course on what the business of your sponsor is. And of course, this is all very new. I'm not saying that from tomorrow onwards, all sponsorship will run like that. But it's important more and more, even to the ones that are saying, look, we only want to pay for the billboard in the stadium or the logo on the shirt, is that you already start educating them around these things a bit more. Maybe offer some for free and show them, look, we did a contest, or we did a format this year. The first year we did it for free. And at the end, at least you will be able to show them the results, the uplift that you can, or the brand exposure that you can generate for them with those kind of things. And then I promised a bit earlier that I know I focused a lot on the club side, but I saw there were also in the registrations a lot of people from more the brand side, from banks, from insurance companies, FMCG companies. So I wanted to show at least one example of more the brand side using our platform to manage their activations. And this is a very short example about the National Lottery in Belgium. So they have their loyalty club, which is conveniently called the Lottery Club. And of course, lotteries are classically the companies that sponsor a lot of events, both in the cultural sector, as you can see. Again, we're learning something about Belgium. We're seeing on top the artist Paul Delvaux. Below, we're seeing not a Belgian artist, but Giacometti. But then on the bottom, of course, also the classical sports events that they are sponsoring or having their own betting around. And basically what they are doing is they are on their channels using all these different kind of formats, as we saw, the quizzes, the votes, the user-generated content. And everything is actually linked to their own accounts and their own newsletter systems. So throughout the year, they continue to do these kind of activations and gather on a steady basis. They gather these leads in for marketing, and yeah, basically have really a measurable impact also on the business. So these sponsorships are not just, let's say, a kind of charity, let's say, for the sponsored one, but also really a way for the marketing team to gather leads in ways that they might not be able to do with just pure branding campaigns, or as they call them, top funnel campaigns that are purely about the awareness. So yeah, also really using the sponsorship as a way to activate and to impact the business. All right, and then the last part before we go to the general question. So how does Qualifio actually come in? Maybe we don't need to stay too long on this slide. As we said, Belgian companies, we exist for a while and we work with both brands and clubs. But as I said, we are a technology platform that is used both by clubs, brands, media, and agencies. It was founded actually by two guys from a newspaper group. And actually Olivier was the head of marketing there. And their initial goal was, how can we allow people without any technical knowledge, so marketing teams, activation managers, social media managers, journalists even, how can we allow them to create all these kind of interactive formats, quizzes, photo contests, personality tests, all these kind of things based on templates, so very easily. So they don't have to go via a technical team, don't have to wait for developers on the different channels. So you see there, website, mobile apps, social media, and of course have some reporting so that the journalist can see, okay, I generated maybe this amount of page views extra in my article, but also connect them, for example, gather newsletter permissions or segmentation information and push this to other tools. To give a very concrete example, this is not the previous examples that I showed were real. This is not real. This is just something I made for a demo a couple of weeks ago, and that I thought was easy to share. So I'm not showing the back office of a customer. So I thought let's make somebody. When I was actually last month in Copenhagen and I was having dinner with a customer, they were telling me, look, Pokalen, they also want to give some exposure to the smaller teams, so you should actually do something maybe around something funny around it. And I thought, like, okay, let's make the example of a beard of the year campaign, where also smaller clubs can make people enter. So you see actually on the bottom they've uploaded, and you see like on the left how this is created is basically there is a set of steps. The channels, questions, everything, like form, exit, virality, where you can add social media buttons. You just enter the content and automatically it takes the design based on a number of templates where you can add your images without any coding. So that's basically the idea, to do this very easily. And as I said, afterwards, it's actually easy. It's just copying and pasting in a CMS. So it's just like putting a YouTube video on your website. And as we said, it can feed into a CRM or work in communication with your account in a single sign-on system or other systems. So that's most of it for me. So maybe one last thing, do go and have a look at our blog. I know there were a lot of sectors that maybe, or people from sectors that we didn't cover in the examples, but we do have a lot of nice examples. So for example, if you're from a, I don't know, FMCG bank or a utilities company and you want to find something, go to the blog, just type utilities or banks and you will find already lots of examples. Ebooks also of course, the World Cup didn't happen, but we had some nice examples there. So really go there for inspiration, even if you're not planning on doing something with us. It's really a blog for everybody to get just inspiration. And then, the last thing to end with, I thought on a positive note, is like, even though that we won 4-2, you still had this nice moment where Courtois saw the ball going in his own goal with an own goal. I don't know if there were any questions, Lars, or yeah, feel free to send others now.
Yeah, thank you so much, Gerald. Thank you for taking us through all these really, really good and strong cases. I think you explained very well how we can actually get out and make some real strong digital activations using your platform. I thought during your presentation about what is your experience in seeing from the club side, because we of course all know that we want a higher volume, we want more engagement, but what does it take? What's your experience? Can you give some advice on that?
Yeah. It's a good question, and I think what's interesting there is that we can also take some of the learnings that there were already from the media companies before. Like as I mentioned before, it's interesting to already look in other sectors. How do media get this recurring traffic to specific pages? I think, as I said, one part with the recurring formats, like we mentioned, that the goal of the month or these kind of formats is that they are really for creating habits. So the first time that you do them, you might be very disappointed by the results that you're getting. But the goal is that you keep doing these on a regular basis. And that's what it's a term that actually, I don't know if it really exists, but it's a Swedish customer. I think it was at Aftonbladet that mentioned to me, we're doing this for the customer promise. So they actually only show these quizzes to their paying customers. And they said, we are going to put these quizzes every time on the same page on our website. And we actually also publish them on the same times of the week. So people come back and know, okay, I will have this. And steadily over time, they see then that the participations are growing. And then, of course, football or other sports, actually, it's always quite emotional. So the creative part, if you can involve the players, it always works. So if it's not too standard to help, can always help with the virality.
Yeah. Another thing is that when you are a marketeer, you're working with A and B testing, trying to find out which message with ad is the best. Are you seeing any development in this area using your platform to find out where can we actually optimize our communication?
Yes, it's a good question. So there, and we didn't jump too much into dive too deep into the slide of the connections with other tools, but there we don't try to become an A/B testing tool, but we will connect with them. And as we mentioned, it's very easy to copy, for example, one man of the match from one week to another. So it's as easy to copy the same campaign 2 times and maybe use a different banner, use one where the logo is on the top right, one on the top or on the bottom, or use different colors. So it's very easy to make these kind of copies and test. And the reporting and the dashboarding is also quite easy to see. So you don't also need, let's say, any difficult tools to analyze. You can very easily see, okay, how is this going, and even have some funnel statistics. So, for example, something stupid in a quiz with 10 questions, you can see every step, every question, how many people are dropping off. And that's what's interesting also, is that you can adapt these things in real time. So what we often have is if the customer sees that, okay, after question 6, people are stopping, they can just remove some of the questions and it will adapt also in real time. So even while the campaigns are live, you also get some feedback and can already work with the feedback while it's still live.
Yeah. The last question I have is on the KPIs and the measurement. Is that a built-in tool into the platform, so you can set up a measurement on the different kind of things you actually want to measure?
That's a good question. So by default in the tool, there is some dashboarding that includes some things like page views, like participations, opt-ins, for example, for permission, funnels, like I already mentioned, so or picking winners. But of course, some people might want to go further, might want to go track things with Adobe or with Google, or maybe check where people are checking the screen, and that's where we also connect easily with analytics tools. And what's interesting also here is that we try to template that again. So when I talk about templates, it's not only the formats or the designs, it's also the connections with those other tools. So what we often have is that at the beginning, when we start with a new customer, when we set up a new account, we will have maybe a workshop with their analytics teams to figure out, okay, what are the things that you might want to track across all different campaigns. That might be, like you say, specific clicks on buttons or conversions. And then we can, together with them, set up a custom tagging plan with their analytics tool that is automatically applied to any of the campaigns. So even then afterwards, a social media manager that maybe doesn't know that much about the analytics part just creates his campaign, and his connection with his analytics tool is made. And also in terms of, for example, lead generation, when he just picks a form, already gets automatically the right legal wording for the opt-ins. And the connection in the backend is often already made with the CRM. So often the end user creating the campaign, whether it's a journalist or a social media manager or a marketing manager, doesn't actively have to think anymore about, like you say, the analytics part. The goal is really that it's easy to use. And that's really because of the, let's say, the history of the platform coming from a media background created for journalists and things like that.
Yeah. Okay, thank you so much, Jill. Thank you for making a great presentation for the Spot On Club members and our community in Denmark. It has really been a pleasure. I hope we can do it another time, and I hope, of course, also that we can welcome you in Copenhagen or in Denmark at a physical event.
I hope that the most too. I'd love to have a coffee or a beer with the people and seeing their faces actually afterwards.
Yeah, I think you have done a really good job today. We will, of course, come back. You will send out the presentation, and there will be an online link also to people that haven't been able to participate during the last hour. So please spread the word and use, of course, the cases. Come back to me or direct to Jill if you want some more information. We'll be happy to share it. And by that, I'll say the last word about our program is that we now soon will launch some new activities in the Spot On Club. So you'll have some new great either physical or digital events to look forward to. Last question, Jill. You had your last screen in your presentation. Who has the best goalkeeper? I mean, we have Kasper Schmeichel. Can you compete with that in Belgium after that episode?
He's not having his best days nowadays, so I'm gonna leave that in the middle right now.
Let's discuss that when you come to Copenhagen.
Exactly.
Thank you so much now, and thank you everybody for participating. See you.
See you. Bye.